When my grandmother's will was read, my lawyer brother and doctor brother-in-law expected to inherit millions from her business empire. Instead, she left everything to me, the disappointing schoolteacher who lived paycheck to paycheck. What happened next revealed the true greed and ugliness of my own family in ways that shocked even me. My name is David, and I want to tell you how my own family tried to manipulate me out of my inheritance, only to discover that I was 10 steps ahead of them the entire time. It all began 18 months ago, when my grandmother Eleanor passed away. At the age of 89, Grandma Eleanor wasn't just any ordinary grandmother. She was a sharp, successful businesswoman who had built a small empire from nothing. Starting with a single bakery in 1962, she had expanded into a chain of 12 successful restaurants across 3 states, plus significant real estate investments and a portfolio worth over $4 million. I had always been Grandma Eleanor's favorite, though I never fully understood why until much later. While my older brother Marcus and sister Jennifer had always treated visits to Grandma's house like obligatory chores, I genuinely enjoyed spending time with her. Even as a child, I was fascinated by her stories of building her business, and as I grew older, I would ask her detailed questions about her strategies and decisions. "You have the mind of an entrepreneur, David," she would tell me, during our long conversations on her back porch. "You understand that success isn't about luck, it's about planning, patience, and making smart decisions even when they're difficult." Marcus, who was 35 to my 31, had always been the golden child in my parents' eyes. He was a lawyer at a prestigious firm, married to a woman from a wealthy family, and lived in a mansion in the most exclusive part of town. Jennifer, 33, had married a successful doctor and seemed to believe that her beauty and social connections were more valuable than actual work or character. Both of them had always treated me like the family disappointment. I was a high school teacher who coached basketball, drove a 10-year-old Honda, and lived in a modest apartment. They never missed an opportunity to make snide comments about my lack of ambition or my wasted potential. The reading of Grandma. Eleanor's will took place on a gray Tuesday morning in October at the offices of Hartwell and Associates. Her longtime legal firm. The entire family was there. My parents, Marcus and his wife, Stephanie. Jennifer and her husband, Dr. Richard, and me, Mr. Hartwell, a distinguished man in his 70s who had been Grandma's lawyer for over 30 years, cleared his throat and began reading. "To my grandson Marcus, I leave the sum of $50,000 with the hope that it will help him remember that money should serve people, not the other way around." Marcus smiled smugly, clearly expecting much more. "To my granddaughter Jennifer, I leave the sum of $50,000 with the wish that she will use it to discover what truly matters in life." Jennifer looked pleased, but obviously anticipated being named as a major beneficiary. "To my son Robert and daughter-in-law Patricia," Mr. Hartwell continued, reading about my parents, "I leave the sum of $100,000 each with my love and gratitude for giving me 3 wonderful grandchildren." My parents exchanged satisfied glances. $200,000 was more than they had expected. "And to my grandson David," Mr. Hartwell paused, looking directly at me, "I leave the remainder of my estate, including all business interests, real estate holdings, investment portfolios, and personal property, with the exception of a few specific items mentioned in the attached documents." The silence in the room was deafening. I felt like I couldn't breathe. "I'm sorry," Marcus said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Did you say remainder? What exactly does that mean in dollar terms?" Hartwell consulted his papers. "The current estimated value of the estate remainder is approximately $3.2 million, plus the ongoing revenue from the restaurant chain and rental properties." Jennifer gasped audibly. "There has to be some mistake." "There is no mistake," Mr. Hartwell said firmly. "Mrs. Eleanor Blackwood was of completely sound mind when she created this will 2 years ago. She also left a personal letter for David." With shaking hands, I accepted the sealed envelope. Inside, in Grandma Eleanor's neat handwriting, was a letter that would change my understanding of everything. "My dearest David, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you're probably as shocked as everyone else in that room. Let me explain. Over the years, I watched all my grandchildren carefully. Marcus and Jennifer visited me out of obligation and spent their time talking about their own successes while checking their phones. They saw me as an old woman with money, nothing more. But you, David, you saw me as a person you listened to. My stories asked thoughtful questions and genuinely cared about my experiences. You understood that building something meaningful takes time, patience, and character. More importantly, you chose a profession dedicated to helping others, even when your family mocked you for it. Teaching is one of the most noble professions in the world, and coaching young people requires the same leadership skills that built my business. I am leaving you my life's work because I trust you to continue my legacy and use this wealth to make a positive difference. Your siblings will be angry, but they will also reveal their true characters and how they handle this situation. Be prepared, my dear boy. They will try everything to take what is rightfully yours. Don't let them. All my love, Grandma Eleanor Piss. Check the safety deposit box. The key is taped under the drawer in my kitchen desk. As I finished reading, I looked up to see my family staring at me with expressions ranging from shock to barely contained fury. This is ridiculous, Marcus said, standing up abruptly. David is a school teacher who lives paycheck to paycheck. What does he know about managing a business empire? The will is crystal clear, Mr. Hartwell replied. Mrs. Blackwood's wishes are legally binding and were executed properly. We'll contest this, Jennifer said, her voice shaking with rage. Our grandmother was obviously not in her right mind. This is elder abuse. Jennifer, I said quietly. Grandma Eleanor was sharper at 89 than most people are at 50, you know that? Don't you dare lecture me, she snapped. You manipulated a confused old woman to steal our inheritance. Your inheritance? I stood up, feeling a surge of anger. When was the last time any of you visited her without wanting something? When did you ever call just to see how she was doing? That's not the point, Marcus said coldly. The point is that you're not qualified to handle this responsibility. You'll run everything into the ground within a year. My father, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. David, son, maybe you should consider sharing this inheritance. It would be the right thing to do. I looked at my father, a man I had always respected, and felt something break inside me. The right thing to do? Dad. Grandma Eleanor made her decision based on 15 years of watching all of us. She chose me because she believed I would honor her legacy. Your grandmother was a senile old woman who was clearly manipulated. Stephanie, Marcus's wife, said with venom. Everyone knows you were always trying to butter her up. That was the moment I realized that my family had never really known me. At all. And they certainly hadn't known Grandma Eleanor. Over the next few weeks, my family launched what could only be described as a coordinated assault on my inheritance. Marcus hired one of the best estate lawyers in the state to contest the will. Jennifer started spreading rumors about my supposed manipulation of our grandmother. My parents began a passive-aggressive campaign to guilt me into doing the right thing and sharing the money. The legal challenge was particularly nasty. Marcus's lawyer argued that I had exercised undue influence over our grandmother, that she had been suffering from dementia, and that the will was invalid. It demanded complete financial records of all my interactions with Grandma Eleanor, trying to prove I had somehow coerced her, but here's what they didn't know. Grandma Eleanor had anticipated all of this. When I went to her house to clean out her belongings, I found the key to her safety deposit box exactly where her letter said it would be. Inside that box was a treasure trove of evidence that she had carefully collected over the years. There were detailed journals documenting every family visit, recording conversations, and noting who had asked for money, who had shown genuine interest in her life, and who had treated her with respect. She had saved every birthday card, every thank you note, and every casual text message from all her grandchildren. The contrast was damning. My folder was thick with handwritten thank you notes for birthday gifts, copies of emails I had sent sharing funny stories from my classroom, photos from the school basketball games she had attended to support me, and records of the times I had helped her with everything from grocery shopping to doctor's appointments. Marcus's folder contained primarily formal holiday cards and a few emails requesting loans or asking for business advice that could benefit him. Jennifer's folder was even thinner, mostly just obligatory birthday and Christmas communications. But the most damaging evidence was a series of audio recordings. Grandma Eleanor had, unbeknownst to any of us, been recording family gatherings for the past 3 years using a small digital recorder. She told me in another letter that she had started doing this when she began to suspect that people were visiting her with ulterior motives. The recordings were devastating. There was Marcus at Christmas dinner 2 years ago, discussing with Stephanie how they could convince Grandma Eleanor to invest in Marcus's friend's real estate venture. There was Jennifer complaining to her husband about having to waste their Saturday visiting the old lady but acknowledging that they needed to stay in her good graces. Most damaging of all was a recording from my birthday dinner 8 months before Grandma Eleanor passed away. In it, Marcus and Jennifer could be heard in the kitchen, unaware that the recorder was nearby, discussing their expectations for the inheritance. "Obviously, we'll have to put David's share into some kind of trust," Marcus said. "He's too irresponsible to handle real money. If we're smart about it, we can use his inheritance to fund our kids' college educations," Jennifer replied. "Doesn't have children, so he doesn't understand these kinds of expenses. The important thing is making sure he doesn't get control of the business," Marcus continued. "I've already talked to a few lawyers about how we can structure things. They had been planning to manipulate my inheritance before Grandma Eleanor was even dead." When Mr. Hartwell presented these recordings to Marcus's lawyer, along with Grandma Eleanor's detailed journals and medical records proving her mental competency, the legal challenge collapsed immediately. But my family's response to losing the legal battle showed me exactly who they really were. Marcus called me at school one afternoon, his voice cold with rage. "You think you've won, but you haven't. No one in this family will ever speak to you again. You've destroyed our family for money." "I didn't destroy anything, Marcus. I just refused to let you steal what wasn't yours. You're delusional if you think you can run Grandma's businesses. You're a school teacher, for God's sake. You'll be bankrupt within 2 years, and don't expect any of us to bail you out." Jennifer's approach was different, but equally toxic. Started a whisper campaign among our extended family and family friends, painting me as a greedy manipulator who had taken advantage of a lonely old woman. She told anyone who would listen that I had isolated our grandmother from the rest of the family and filled her head with lies about them. The most hurtful betrayal came from my parents. Instead of supporting me, or at least remaining neutral, they sided with Marcus and Jennifer. My mother called me crying one evening. "David, honey, I know you think you're doing the right thing, but this money is tearing our family apart. Can't you find it in your heart to share? Your grandmother would have wanted us all to stay together." "Mom," I said sadly, "if the family falls apart because I honored Grandma Eleanor's wishes, then maybe it wasn't as strong as we thought." "Don't be selfish, David. Think about your nieces and nephews. Think about their futures." "I am thinking about the future. Mom, I'm thinking about building something meaningful with what Grandma Eleanor left me, just like she wanted. But my mother had already made her choice." Within a month, my parents had effectively cut me out of their lives, siding completely with Marcus and Jennifer. The irony was that while my family was busy trying to destroy me, I was working harder than I had ever worked in my life to prove that Grandma Eleanor's faith in me was justified. I took a leave of absence from teaching and threw myself into learning every aspect of the business empire I had inherited. I spent hours with the restaurant managers, learning about operations, supply chains, customer service, and financial management. I studied real estate markets, analyzed the rental properties, and worked with financial advisors to understand the investment portfolio. It turned out that Grandma Eleanor's businesses were well-run but had been coasting for the past few years. With fresh energy and some strategic investments, I was able to increase revenue by 15% in my first year. I opened to new restaurant locations, renovated 3 of the rental properties to command higher rents, and made some smart moves in the stock market that increased the portfolio's value significantly. More importantly, I never forgot the values that Grandma Eleanor had tried to instill in me. I increased wages for all the restaurant workers, implemented profit-sharing programs, and established a scholarship fund for the children of employees who wanted to pursue higher education. I also didn't abandon my love for teaching. I used some of the inheritance to establish the Eleanor Blackwood Education Foundation, which provided grants to public schools in low-income areas and funded after-school programs for at-risk youth. 2 years after inheriting Grandma Eleanor's estate, I had not only maintained its value, but increased it to over $4.5 million. The restaurant chain was more successful than it had ever been. The real estate investments were generating excellent returns, and the foundation was making a real difference in the community. That's when my family started trying to reconcile it. Began with my mother calling to congratulate me on a newspaper article about the foundation's work. "I always knew you had it in you, sweetheart," she said, as if the past 2 years of silence had never happened. Then Jennifer reached out, suggesting we meet for lunch to clear the air. When we met at a cafe downtown, she was all smiles and sisterly affection. "David, I owe you an apology," she said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. "I was wrong to question Grandma Eleanor's decision. You've clearly proven that you were the right choice." "Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate that. I was hoping we could put all this behind us and be a family again. Richard and I are planning to send the kids to private school, and we were wondering if you might consider helping with the tuition." As family, there it was. The real reason for the reconciliation attempt? "I'll think about it," I said noncommittally. Marcus's approach was more sophisticated. He invited me to lunch at his country club and arrived with a detailed business proposal. "I've been thinking about our family situation, and I realize I was wrong to challenge Grandma Eleanor's will. You've done an amazing job with the inheritance." "Thank you, Marcus. I have a proposition that could benefit us both. I've identified some incredible investment opportunities that could double our family's wealth in the next 5 years. If you're interested in partnering with me, we could make Grandma Eleanor's legacy even greater." He slid a folder across the table, containing information about various real estate developments and business ventures. Everything looked professional and well-researched. "These are interesting opportunities," I said, flipping through the documents. "But I'm curious, why come to me now? 2 years ago, you said I was too irresponsible to handle money." Marcus had the grace to look embarrassed. I was angry and spoke out of turn. "I can see now that Grandma Eleanor knew what she was doing. This has nothing to do with the fact that I'm now worth more than the rest of the family combined. David, we're brothers. I want us to succeed together." I closed the folder and slid it back to him. "Marcus, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not interested in any partnerships right now." His mask slipped slightly. "You're making a mistake, David. These opportunities won't last forever." "Maybe not. But I'd rather make my own mistakes than trust someone who spent 2 years trying to destroy me." The final attempt came from my parents, who invited me to Sunday dinner like old times. When I arrived at their house, I found Marcus, Jennifer, and their families all there as well. "We thought it was time for a real family reunion," my father said, embracing me warmly. Dinner was pleasant, everyone carefully avoiding any mention of the inheritance or our estrangement. My nieces and nephews, who hadn't seen me in 2 years, were excited to share their accomplishments and hear about my work with the foundation. After dinner, as we sat in the living room, my mother brought up what was clearly the real agenda. "David, honey, we've all been talking. We think it would be wonderful if you considered creating trust funds for your nieces and nephews. Just something to help with their education and future expenses." I looked around the room at my family, all of them watching me with expectant smiles. "That's an interesting idea, Mom. How much were you thinking?" Well, Marcus jumped in. "We were thinking maybe $200,000 each. That would cover college expenses and give them a good start in life." $200,000 each, I repeated. "So $800,000 total for the 4 kids. It would be such a generous gift," Jennifer added. "It would show them how important family is." I nodded thoughtfully. "And what about the parents? Any thoughts on that?" "What do you mean?" my father asked. "Well, if I'm going to invest in the children's futures, shouldn't the parents also be prepared to invest in them? Maybe match my contributions?" "David," Marcus said carefully, "we don't have that kind of liquid capital available. But you want me to give $800,000 to children whose parents can't even contribute to their trust funds?" "It's different for you," Jennifer said defensively. "You don't have the same expenses we do." "You're right, Jennifer. I don't have the same expenses you do. I don't have a 5-bedroom house in the most expensive neighborhood in town. I don't drive luxury cars or take European vacations every year." The atmosphere in the room was becoming tense. "What are you saying, David?" my mother asked. "I'm saying that I've learned something important over the past 2 years. Grandma Eleanor didn't leave me her money because she wanted me to hand it out to family members who treated her poorly. She left it to me because she trusted me to use it wisely. Stood up and looked at each of them. For 2 years, none of you spoke to me. You challenged my inheritance in court, spread lies about me in the community, and treated me like I had done something wrong by accepting what Grandma Eleanor freely gave me. Now that I've proven I can manage the money successfully, you all want to be family again? We made mistakes, my father said quietly. We're trying to make amends. Hey, Dad. Making amends would be apologizing for your behavior and accepting that your relationship with me shouldn't be contingent on my financial support. But that's not what's happening here, is it? No one answered. You're here because you want money. You see me as a resource to be exploited, just like you saw Grandma Eleanor. You don't actually want a relationship with me. You want access to my bank account. That's not true, Jennifer protested, isn't it? Jennifer, when was the last time? You called me just to see how I was doing? Marcus, when have you ever invited me anywhere that didn't involve a business proposition? Mom, Dad, when have you ever asked about my work with the foundation without following up with a request for money? The silence answered my question. I think it's time for me to go, I said, collecting my coat. David, please, my mother said, tears in her eyes. Don't let money destroy our family. I'm not destroying anything, Mom. I'm just refusing to pretend that people who abandoned me for 2 years suddenly love me again because I'm wealthy. I walked toward the door, then turned back. If any of you ever want to have a real relationship with me, one that isn't based on money or what I can do for you, I'm open to that conversation. But I'm done being treated like a bank account with legs. As I drove home that night, I felt sad but also liberated. My family's true colors had been revealed completely, and I was finally free to build my life without their manipulation and false expectations. 3 years later, my businesses are thriving, and the foundation has helped hundreds of children access better education. I've started dating Sarah, a fellow teacher, who knows about my wealth but loves me for who I am, not what I have. We're building something real together, based on shared values and genuine affection. My family still reaches out periodically, usually when they need money for something. Marcus's law practice hit some rough patches, and he's tried several times to pitch me investment opportunities that would conveniently require my financial backing. Jennifer's marriage has been struggling, apparently. Dr. Richard isn't as wealthy as she thought, and she's hinted that she could use help with their mortgage payments. My parents have become more subtle in their approaches, usually calling around holidays with updates about the family's financial struggles and mentions of how blessed I am to be in a position to help. I respond to all of these overtures the same way, with politeness, distance, and absolute refusal to provide financial support. The most satisfying moment came 6 months ago, when I received an invitation to Marcus's eldest daughter's high school graduation. I decided to attend, curious to see how the family would react to my presence at the graduation party. I was treated with careful politeness by most of the family, but I could feel the underlying tension and expectation. As I was preparing to leave, my niece Emma approached me. Uncle David, I just wanted to thank you for the scholarship program you created. My friend Maria got one of the grants, and it's going to help her family so much. That's wonderful, Emma. I'm glad the program is making a difference. I was wondering, she said, looking nervous, if you had any advice for someone who wants to make a positive impact like you have? I smiled, recognizing something in Emma that reminded me of myself at her age, genuine interest in making a difference, rather than just accumulating wealth. Emma, the most important thing I've learned is that real success isn't about how much money you have. It's about using whatever resources you have to make the world a little better than you found it. That's what I thought, she said. I'm planning to study education in college. I want to be a teacher. That's a noble profession. Teachers change lives every day. As I left the party, I realized that Grandma Eleanor's legacy was continuing in ways she never could have imagined. Not through the money she left me, but through the values she instilled and the examples she set. My family wanted her inheritance to be about them, their comfort, their children's futures, their financial security. But Grandma Eleanor had understood that true wealth isn't about what you accumulate. It's about what you give back. Today, as I work with the foundation and continue to grow the businesses Grandma Eleanor built, I often think about the choice she made to leave everything to me. It wasn't really about the money at all. It was about finding someone who would honor her values and continue her commitment to making a positive difference. My family lost more than an inheritance when they revealed their true characters. They lost the opportunity to be part of something meaningful, something bigger than their individual desires for wealth and status. As for me, I gained something far more valuable than money. I gained the knowledge that I am capable of living up to the trust that someone placed in me, and the satisfaction of using that trust to make the world a better place. The inheritance they tried so hard to steal from me became the foundation for a life I never could have imagined. And every day, I try to be worthy of the faith that a wise old woman placed in her grandson who chose to be a teacher. That, I think, is the greatest inheritance of all.